There's about 2 weeks left in the NBA regular season, and teams are battling it out for the last playoff spots. But in today's video, we're going to talk about the top 10 players that I feel could be traded over the summertime. We all know the NBA is a 12-month league, and if there's one thing we've learned over the last 5 years, anything is possible during the offseason. Do you guys remember last summer? The three stars, DeMar DeRozan, Kyle Lowry, and Lonzo Ball, all switched teams on massive sign-in trades. We all can't forget the Lakers, who sent 3 crucial role players to the Wizards for Russell Westbrook and that enormous contract during the 2021 offseason. And we've seen how well, or I should say not well, that's worked out. These decisions could be crucial to a team's success for the following season. So fast forward to the 2022 trade deadline this year. It was ridiculous to say the least. Philly, they got rid of their superstar Ben Simmons to the Nets for James Harden. CJ McCollum found himself in New Orleans after Damian Lillard wasn't too happy with his play. And remember Domantas Sabonis landed in Sacramento? I can almost guarantee you the Sacramento Kings would love to reverse that trade. Now, the league's in the season transactions were just the precursor for what is guaranteed to be an active offseason, y'all. The Lakers have to make a move, or 3, or 4. The Trailblazers and the Kings made a series of odd February deals that should be the forerunner to more follow-up transactions during the summer. I mean, Tyrese Halliburton, need I say less? One could even make the argument that Buddy Hield turned into an offensive juggernaut once being with the right team. So as I curated this list, I looked at a couple problems that some of the teams that didn't necessarily make a huge trade could be facing coming this summer. The Houston Rockets, the Detroit Pistons, the Toronto Raptors, and the New York Knicks. And let's not forget those Washington Wizards. They could have a huge Bradley Beal problem. With all of that said, now I'm going to list the top 10 players that I believe will be on the move coming this summer. Jerami Grant, the forward for the Detroit Pistons, will enter the final season of his $60 million contract. And listen, the dude wants his money. Now, we don't know if Troy Weaver, the GM, is willing to put that kind of investment into him. But like always, in the last year of anyone's contract, a GM has a decision to make, whether or not to trade his player or let him walk for nothing. Grant reportedly wants a $112 million extension, and that's $28 million per year. That's kind of a hefty price for a guy that shoots a 34.8% from deep and topped out at last year with 2.8 dimes per game. I don't know if Troy Weaver could swing that, especially for someone that can't carry the offense. As we know, a handful of teams were interested in Grant at the trade deadline, including the Nets and the Trailblazers. We all know that Brooklyn landed Ben Simmons. That was taking them out of their running, while Portland traded away most of their team, and they really don't have very much to offer the Pistons. Now, the Indiana Pacers were also interested in Grant at the deadline. They could actually look to rekindle those trade talks. We all know that Malcolm Brogdon could be on the move. But in order for the Indiana Pacers to get this deal done, I really believe that Miles Turner has to be involved in this trade. Now, looking at it from the Pacers' point of view, he has been injured a lot the last 2 years, but they would be giving up a great rim protector and leaving themselves completely exposed at the 5 position. The Detroit Pistons would make out like bandits, filling that need at the center spot, while also giving up a player that was already on his way out. Another team that could be interested, the Thunder. Sam Presti, he has a ridiculous amount of draft picks, and he might be ready to cash in for a few for a chance to build a core around Jerami Grant. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and Josh Giddey, the Pistons would be wise to add a few high draft picks to their future coffers. Personally, I'm a huge fan of Cade Cunningham. The dude is a baller. He's definitely a future superstar, if not already at that point. But the Detroit Pistons are still 2 or 3 years away from being real contenders for the playoffs. I almost feel bad for mentioning this team, but Sacramento could make one of their typically dumb moves, trading Harrison Barnes with his 41.2 3-point percentage and a top 20 defense for Jerami Grant, and his subpar 3-point percentage and slightly worse inside-out defense. Anything can happen. I wouldn't put it past the Kings. Next up, we have Christian Wood. And during all these trade rumors, I was super convinced he was going to be moved by Houston by the trade deadline. And you almost have to feel bad for him. He agreed to sign and trade to go to the Rockets last summer for the chance to play with James Harden on a playoff contending team. But then, Harden went on to miss Houston's entire training camp and preseason before entering the regular season with a potbelly and an angry beard, which got him a one-way ticket to the Brooklyn Nets. Now, the Lakers, they've been talking about a deal in place at the trade deadline, which would have landed them John Wall and Christian Wood for Russell Westbrook, Talen Horton-Tucker, and their 2027 first-round pick. Now, both organizations could easily revisit that trade over the summer, with the Lakers feeling enough fan pressure to mortgage their further future and pull that trigger. The Miami Heat were also interested in Christian Wood. I did a video about this earlier in the year. That deal would make Pat Riley look like a genius. Pairing him with Bam Adebayo and Jimmy Butler would be an elite defensive front court. They could come calling again over the summer if things don't work out with the Lakers. Now we have DeAaron Fox from the Sacramento Kings. They pulled off another short-sighted trade with getting Domantas Sabonis and sending away young, talented all-star Tyrese Halliburton, along with Buddy Hield and Tristan Thompson. Now listen, they got Justin Holiday, which should have been a great pickup, but the dude is shooting worse as he's been with Sacramento Kings. Of course, the new sexy thing to do is to talk about a team's big three. Now let's look at this. The Sacramento Kings' big three is DeAaron Fox, Domantas Sabonis, and Harrison Barnes. Need I say less? I almost feel bad for DeAaron Fox because he's not to blame. He's averaging 29.3 points per game and averaging 7.5 dimes while shooting 37.2% on his 6 three-point attempts and logging a massive 39 minutes per game. Fox's trade value was about as high as it will get, and maybe the Kings gotta stop acting like the Kings for once. The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and over again and expecting a different result. Maybe the Kings will take that hint. The starless Knicks would love to land Fox, and honestly, they'd probably give away their next 3 first-round picks for him. The Celtics' top playmaker is Marcus Smart, enough said, and the Utah Jazz are stocked with an assortment of sweet shooting wings, but they could really use a better point guard next to Spida. Next up, John Wall. This is kind of interesting because the only team I could really see him going to is the Los Angeles Lakers. John Wall is earning the second highest salary, you guys, in the league this season at $44 million for sitting on the couch and doing whatever the heck he wants. That's crazy. That is about 99% of this population's dream, and he was living it. Still, it's probably torture for the uber competitor like John Wall, or really any NBA player, to have to go through that. So I feel his pain. The prerequisite for trading for John Wall is you're gonna have to be desperate enough. And the Los Angeles Lakers fit that bill. So, it's a perfect marriage match made in heaven. The Lakers get to dump Brody on the Rockets, a team that would threaten him with John Wall's 2021-2022 fate if he doesn't accept the buyout. And Westbrook might do the math and see what this awful season with the Lakers, plus 1 year out of the league, equals a good chance he'd drop out of the NBA altogether. John Wall would bring a huge upgrade in the speed department in transition. He's able to move the ball quick and get his guys open shots and attack at the rim at will. So, that's really where I see him going. Julius Randle. He's an interesting guy to talk about because he has a couple possible trade destinations. The Indiana Pacers, the Los Angeles Lakers, and I could actually see him going to the Toronto Raptors as well. It's no secret that Julius Randle wants out of New York, and the Knicks feel the same. The Big Apple has crushed Randle in 2021. It's like he's a stuttering comic standing on the stage in his underwear. And Julius has responded in the worst way an NBA player could respond. He clammed up and let all the noise get inside his head. It was really hard to see Julius Randle coming back from this type of season in New York. The Knicks, they have to be wise to do their former one-time All-Star over this summer. And listen, he might end up demanding for a trade, and that would be a terrible position for the New York Knicks. His trade value would continue to tank, and honestly, there was not going to be any real value for him. So they need to move him now. Right now, I could see teams not really giving the Knicks what they want in return for their superstar. I'll say this though, New York will shout out to the league that their fans ruined things for Randle. But in the end, it's hard to see the Knicks getting an all-star level player or really a handful of sweet draft picks for their power forward. So, the Lakers, again, if they're desperate enough, they would definitely jump at the chance to trade Brody for Randle. They take Evan Fournier and Kemba Walker's awful contracts while throwing in their 2027 first-round pick. You also have the typical teams, the Toronto Raptors. They might be open to doing a Pascal Siakam trade, or even the Indiana Pacers trading Malcolm Brogdon. You're going to hear that name come up a lot throughout this video. But you guys, tomorrow, we're going to be back better than ever with part 2 of this video. I can't wait. But until then, I'll save y'all a seat. Peace.